quorum, so if we're ready, I don't, do you need to do something to, Hillary, because we take minutes or something? Okay. All right. Well, I will call the meeting to order, and we see many faces here that we've seen before, so we didn't see you there, Jenna, but maybe you were there at the sick ribbon cutting, but it was really a fun event to see, and all the work city staff and everybody did. And I think at those ceremonies, sometimes the elected officials are recognized, but the staff who does all the heavy lifting is not. And, we just maybe should just take a moment and, just again say thank you to the staff for making these things possible, because obviously with Shane and Becky and Jason and some new people coming on, hopefully we can keep on doing these. But it's just really fun to be out there in South Loop and see all the construction cranes going and drive around. And again, after thinking about this thing for 30 or 40 years, it's really coming out of the ground. So, okay, well, the first item on the agenda is do we need to take a roll call? Okay, you want to call the roll, Hillary?
Absolutely, thank you. Erickson,
Here.
Boosie, Carter,
Here.
Hunt,
Here.
Keller, Luntz,
Here.
and Peterson.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, well, the first item on the agenda is the approval of minutes for September 6th, 2022. I would entertain a motion for their approval.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Carter. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Luntz. Any additional discussion or corrections? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried 5-0. Next item is the resolution to approve a 2022 budget adjustment. So I see we have our faithful finance employee here.
Thank you very much, President Erickson and Commissioners. I'm here to ask for a budget adjustment to our 2022 budget. We received a $250,000 grant in early September from Hennepin County, and it was just a pass-through that we are sending through right away to the Minnesota Expo. So as you will note on some of the information that you received on the Port Authority budget page where it says the general fund, there's an item in green, and that kind of explains where we're asking for the adjustment. We're only really asking the adjustment for the expense, as we do not need a budget adjustment for revenues. So with that, I ask that you review it and approve it.
Well, thank you, Jan, and I think I don't think anybody on the commission would disagree that anytime you want to bring a budget adjustment where we've received money, we're happy to see you come to us. So, is there any commissioner questions on this? If not, I would entertain a motion. It's on page 7 of your package. Thank you, Commissioner Peterson. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Hunt. Any further discussion? Not all in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried 5-0. Item 2.2, Joint Powers Agreement with the Housing and Redevelopment Authority in and for the City of Bloomington. And I guess before we get into that, this is, in the next item, are two items that occasionally we have something that goes wrong, and it's something that nobody can forecast beforehand, no matter how much time and effort you put into doing it. And what I was impressed with in this whole process is that when I got a call from Jason, they already had a solution, and he told me this is what we're going to do, and we're going to take care of it. And I understand there was a little consternation to figure out the solution, but at any rate, it's just the kind of thing that, hopefully ends up happening. So I'll let Jason, are you going to talk about it? Or Carla?
Yeah, if I can, Mr. President, I do want, to your point exactly, there are some people I want to acknowledge, particularly our city attorney, Melissa Manderscheid, our CFO, Lori Economy Scholler, Scholler and our special counsel, Julie Eddington, along with city staff and port staff, that really came together within 24 hours to come up with an alternative solution, which Jason will talk about this evening. So they all deserve a lot of kudos because everybody got together, very, very intelligent, smart people, to figure out how to get this process still moving. So I'll defer to Jason. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President and Commissioners. So just for the public, I just want to kind of go over kind of what transpired here. So on September 6th, the Port Authority Commission enacted staff to go ahead and certify a $1.4 million Port Authority levy with Hennepin County. After that meeting, we sent some information to Hennepin County to let them know about turning on the levy and for us to walk through that process. However, from that, we were made of a situation with which it impacted the ability for the Port Authority to levy and for the county auditor to accept that. There's a state statute, 275.067, that requires all taxing jurisdictions certifying their levy for the first time or after a year with which the levy was not turned on, that they need to notify the county with which they reside in of their intent to turn on the levy before July 1st. We were not aware of that, and that notification never occurred to Hennepin County. During our review and reviewing this, the statute, which I just referenced, is not cited in the Port Authority or the HRA statutes regarding our ability to levy. The Port Authority's legal team was unaware of this requirement, and it was not included in the League of Municipalities' important dates calendar regarding the levy process. While it appears that it's not being followed in other surrounding counties that we were made aware of, Hennepin County is enforcing this statute, and the Bloomington Port Authority levy was unable to move forward for the tax year of 2023. We also learned that other Hennepin counties were also unaware of this July 1st deadline in previous years, and with which similarly they were impacted. So since that time frame, as President Erickson had stated, as well as interim Port Authority Administrator Henderson, the Bloomington HRA still had the authority to levy at its maximum amount when we learned of this situation. And so we, with our attorney's assistance, looked at, we can go ahead and the HRA could turn on their full levy at their maximum of $2.77 million. And then the Bloomington HRA and the Bloomington Port Authority could enter into a joint services agreement with which $1.4 million, and that's the amount that the Port Authority was planning to enact with their levy, as well as it was commensurate amount with which the HRA was proposing to reduce their levy, would be transferred to the Port Authority to pay for development and redevelopment services as proposed in the HRA assessment, which was presented to both the Port Authority, the HRA, and the City Council. It is important to note that this process that we're proposing tonight, this joint powers agreement, does not change the impact to the Bloomington taxpayers. The maximum levy of the $2.77 million, which was proposed, is the total levy amount with which the HRA and the Port Authority were planning to turn their levies on. And so the HRA board, they met on September 27th, and they approved maximizing their levy amount and to authorize staff to enter into a joint powers agreement with the Port Authority. And so tonight, attached to this agenda item is that joint powers agreement for consideration. It outlines that the port is able to use HRA funds on overlapping powers, which that includes borrowing, redevelopment projects, and the ability to levy. If the joint powers agreement is approved, the next agenda item is for the port to consider a revised budget amendment based on this joint powers agreement. And it is staff's expectations that the port levy would be turned on in the future tax year of 2024, but that would come before this board at at a future date in 2023 for consideration. And so with that, I am open for any questions that you may have.
Question, Commissioner?
You use the term joint powers. The document says common powers. Those are synonymous, I presume, for clarity?
Mr. President, Commissioner Lunds, that is correct.
And we also have on the available Julie and Melissa Lemander side too, I think, if anybody has any other questions. So, you know, it may be worthwhile, since we have our Port Authority attorney on, to have Julie just comment and say that this is something that you're comfortable with doing and don't see any issues with it.
Good evening, President Erickson. This is Julie Eddington, Port Counsel. I have done joint powers agreements numerous times with two entities, and I have no issues with the solution that we came up with, which was to create this joint powers agreement between the HRA and the Port Authority. They have many of the same, as you may know, a joint powers agreement means that the two entities can get together, and as long as the powers are the same, you can utilize, the Port Authority can utilize the HRA levy. So we will make sure that all of the actions that are taken under the joint powers agreement are within those powers that are common to both Port and HRA, which are a pretty significant number of things that overlap in those two entities.
Thank you, Julie. Any other Port Authority questions? Anybody? Well, I guess if there's no further questions on this item, then I would entertain a motion for the resolution, which is on page 13 of your package, a resolution approving a joint powers agreement with the Housing and Redevelopment Authority in and for the city of Bloomington.
Mr. President, I'll move that we adopt the resolution approving a joint powers agreement with the Housing and Redevelopment Authority in and for the city of Bloomington.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterson. Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Carter. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried 5-0. Okay, so now we go on to the next item.
Good evening again. So now we're going to speak specifically about what this means to our budgets that we had approved at the last meeting, I believe it was, that we did it. So I would ask you kindly to refer back to the Port Authority General Fund budget page. I believe it was 24 and 25, but I know that they changed things around a little bit on there. 24 says the Port Authority General Fund, the top of it is. And in this case, we are asking you to look at the items that are highlighted in yellow for 2023. So salaries and benefits for the general fund were adjusted from $299,000 originally up to $518,000, and then to cover that, we are now asking for a transfer from the South Loop Development Fund that we have used the interest from that fund to cover this from $540,000, which was the original portion of the budget, to up to $750,000. And on this next page, you will see the development fund. And what we have changed here is from the tax levy on the revenue side of this has gone down to zero, obviously, because of our correction here. The other revenues is from the HRA development fund. We're bringing that up to $1.4 million. And the wages and salaries was moved from $760,000, which was originally what we budgeted last, and we're bringing that down to $540,000. Are there any questions that I can answer for you on those?
Commissioner questions? Well, if not, I think if we're ready, we can take and I would entertain a motion for resolution BPA 22, which is contained on page 22 of your package. You gonna do it, Commissioner Peterson? You're on a
Yes.
roll.
Thank you, Mr. President. Move that we adopt the resolution rescinding resolution number 5 BPA 22 and resolution number 6 BPA 22 and approving the revised 2023 Port Authority General Fund and Development Fund budgets.
Thank you. Do we have a second? Okay. Since Commissioner Carter was verbal and Commissioner Luntz was nonverbal, we'll take the verbal response. We have a motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried 5-0. I think that is everything we got on the agenda. So I think that we can adjourn unless anybody else has anything they'd like to bring up. Okay. Please go out and enjoy a very nice summer day and